New Year. Welcome back to the first episode of Wrist Cheese Radio in 2023, your home for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. I'm your host, Bernanke. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Schmidt. Schmitty, what up, bro?
Hey, buddy. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So first and foremost, apologies. We did the unthinkable. I've tried unrelenting. I've tried to never miss a week, but we did it. Holidays kind of crept up, schedules got tangled, the whole nine. I mean, we tried every which way to make it work. It just couldn't. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's a time to be with family.
Yeah.
And as much as I do enjoy doing this, and I love our listeners, and I love that everybody's involved, I think they're probably busy with their stuff too. So I don't know
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
episode would have done anyway. This is sort of the makeup, but here in 2023, it's our first. So Schmidt, what's going on, man? How is 2023 treating you so far?
It's been good. I mean, we've only been in it for a little bit,
Yeah.
basically a day at this point recording, but it's been good so far. I'm excited for what this year's going to bring. I'm excited for the growth of our channel and our podcast and what we're doing, our social media presence. Everything's going to be great this year. I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's been an interesting go so far. I think since our last episode, we had a monstrous cold spell here. Not only cold but windy, very windy,
Yeah.
and so it was probably the night or two after we dropped that episode. My basement has kind of a shoddy window in it, and it blew open during the storm, so we had this giant gust of cold air coming through. So we come home. I come home from a long day of work. I had to go pick up the wife. She was at a holiday party, so she's a little tipsy. Kids, I had to grab them, put them in bed. She's like, the water doesn't work. I'm like, oh my God, I come down here. The pipes are frozen because that's where the pipes go by. So
Oh my
I'm down
God,
here with the
no.
hair dryer, thawing out the pipes. Thankfully, nothing, no bursts, no nothing. Everything was okay. I did some light plumbing, all as well. But it's been an adventurous
Yeah, so it
holiday for
would have
me.
it would have not have been really a great idea to record an episode.
No, no, I mean I probably would have froze my ass off down here. but um but yeah,
Yeah.
between that and I've been doing some light washer repairs. I'm very Tim Allen here in 23 so far. So that's been my sort of go around.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I mean it was an interesting holiday season. Both my girls got sick.
Yep. I
So
mean
it was kind
that's
of a
unavoidable.
weird Christmassy between Christmas and New Year's time. So it was fine. Everyone's fine. Just nothing serious, but just didn't know what it was. Sickness and all kinds of crazy symptoms, but not horrible or COVID or anything like that. So it was just odd, but had to make some last minute plans changes and things like that. So it was a little bit different of a holiday season this year. But otherwise it was really nice. It was good to spend it with family. Nice to be unplugged for a little bit. And again, apologize to you guys for the listeners missing out on last week's episode. But you know what? Other things were just more important at that time. So we'll make it up now.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. You kind of have to do the tiptoe nowadays with illnesses and everything. Because even if it's not COVID and you're going to somebody's house or you have plans with somebody or you're going to be with somebody, then you got to play the kids are a little under the weather. What is it? Well, they just got the sniffles, and then they're like, well, is it like a fever? No, and then like you
Right.
have to feel them out. Like, are you still cool to co-mingle, or are we just gonna call it all? And a lot of times things get canceled or whatever. Like it is what it is. It's just kind of
Yeah.
the hypersensitivity from recent events, but
Yeah. No, I know. I
it's
hate
where
it.
we're
I
at.
hate it. But it is what it is. Everyone's cautious about it. So there you go.
I know, but you know what? I grew up drinking from the garden hose, so
As did I. As did I. There's probably some lead poisoning floating around my body somewhere.
for sure, for sure. So this is episode 62, and today we're gonna do our last, I guess, our final little post mortem on the year 22, and a little look forward. Obviously, we haven't had any major announcements yet, but I think in it's usually the next 2 months we start to get some saucy stuff, right? March is obviously the big shows and everything, when people are waking up in the middle of the night to check all the drops and everything. But before then, we get some
Some sneakies.
Yeah, we get some stuff peppered in, so we'll keep
Yeah.
our eyes peeled for that. But with that, we will do some new releases. As we have acknowledged, Nevada Grenchen is just,
I
let
don't
me
even
tell
know
you,
what to say at this point, man. It's like every week they get a new
they do.
collaboration
They
or
they
a
really
new
do.
LE or something. So
They really do. So I've seen they've once again went with the uh Chronomaster Aviator Sea Diver. This time they're mixing it up with Time and Tide, and this one is for a way to, I guess, save the koala.
yeah, it
I
is what they call a koalabration.
Oh, I like it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it was a
it's got a koala second hand. It looks like the koala is climbing the second hand as it would a eucalyptus tree.
yes. Yes. And if you notice too that when you look at the actual dial, it normally says, Chronomaster, Aviator, Sea Diver, all that stuff. There's like some of the letters are different, like highlighted,
Yeah,
because I think it's basically spells out like save.
that's what I was trying to figure out too, because I understand you if you're gonna highlight some of the letters, you can't there's two V's in there, and you can't just highlight one because then it looks kind of stupid. So I understand why they highlighted them all. I think it is supposed to be save,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think it's cool. It's a neat little tidbit.
Yeah, I mean, this is an Easter egg watch. I
Yeah,
mean, you have a little cartoon koala literally drawn and mounted onto the second hand. Again, I don't know who this watch is really for. It's very whimsical. It's cool. It's for, a good cause. And this is done in partnership with, again, Second Second, who's done basically all of the Nevada Grenchen collaborations at this point.
yeah.
Um, but I think it's cool. I mean, it's a funny, whimsical concept. I mean, again, I literally have no cause for this to be in my collection other than the charity, but what it is. It is
Yeah,
what
I
it
think
is.
if it hit closer to home, like if I lived in a place that was kind of native to koalas, or at least a country that housed them, I think maybe I'd be more into it. But it's neat. It looks good. It's a nice little koala. I can't complain about it. I'm trying to figure out what the S is for. That's definitely some sort of other Easter egg. There's an S on the koala. It looks like.
Is there?
I'm looking at it. I believe there is. It's definitely something sneaky.
Oh,
Oh,
I see it.
it might be for second.
Maybe. Who knows?
But anyways,
Interesting collaboration to say the least. But you know what? A cool one, and not one that by any means we were disparaging the charity or the fundraising. Just not a guy with a
soft spot
really.
for koalas.
No. I mean, I'm all for koalas. I'm just not a guy who needs a watch that celebrates the
Oh
koala.
yeah. I mean, other than that, I mean, I love the Chronomaster, and this comes on a pretty sweet tropics. So by all means, have at it.
And you know what? Maybe you're right about that S, because if you think about it, the S is on the koala, but that koala is also on the second hand. So it could be the
Ooh,
second,
all
you
right.
know?
Maybe we'll have to get confirmation on that. Next up, my favorite company, Seiko, has more or less reeditioned their very first wristwatch. It's not exactly a one for one,
Yep.
but way back when, in the early 1900s, they had a little bit of foresight. They kind of saw the wristwatch game coming. And back when the pocket watch was hot, they made sort of this. I mean, it kind of looks like an old pocket watch, but it goes on more of like a sort of a bun strap.
Yeah. It's a retrofit. It's what
Yes.
they used to call conversion watches.
And it's the Laurel is the name of it. And you've seen they've played at this with some of their enamel presage dials and things like
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
in the recent years. This one specifically is tribute to that. It comes on sort of that Bundy strap, and it has the same red 12. They've done a few things. I know there's a power reserve on this and a small
Yeah.
seconds. So
Yeah,
there's a
it's got a small seconds, but also a big second hand.
yeah. I've been trying to figure out if there's some sneaky complication. Oh no, you know what? That's a small date. It's not a small second, right? It only goes up to 30, 31. Got to be a
Oh,
small date.
yep. So it's a center seconds pointer date, basically, but it's
So
in a sub dial. I've never seen that done that way before. Have you seen it done like that before?
Very few and far between. I feel like I've seen it on something like an
That's
or
so odd.
like the I feel like the Orient GMT that I used to have had that
Well, I mean that would make sense,
or
right?
some.
They're the
Yeah,
same parent company now, right? Take on Orient.
yeah. I don't know. I can't remember what the relationship was. I feel like there's always people who are like they're not the same, but
I
it's
think they're the same parent company, but they operate independently of one another
if I
because they're
remember.
both independent
Yeah,
companies.
if I remember, I think Orient is owned by Epson, who is tied to Seiko,
Okay.
but I don't think that there's much manufacturing crossover or anything.
Collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, but I've never seen a date because I mean it looks literally like a second hand,
Yeah,
especially because of the 30. It's like throwing me off, but it's like it looks exactly like a second hand. But
yeah,
yeah, so it's a small seconds pointer date. Weird.
yeah. So that's at the 6 subdial, and then kind of regular watch layout otherwise, and then there's just power reserve off towards the 9. Um, yeah, so this is in celebration of 110 years of watchmaking on their end. I mean, they've been doing a lot of these lately, but I guess this is just sort of like their little piece de resistance that we made, our wristwatch kind of right
Mm-hmm.
around when it was getting popular. So kind of a nod to that. It's neat. I don't know if it's for me. I probably wouldn't buy it, but I think it's a limited edition of 2,500.
Okay. Yeah. So not really a limited edition per se, but it's still a very cool watch. I mean, it's
Yeah,
certainly a conversation piece.
yeah. And if you're into vintage Seiko, as I am, might be for you. Although this one, I'm not. I'm not in love with this. I'm more of a diver guy.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Yeah.
I'm more of a diver guy.
It's more of a, and you need a little bit more of a tool watch for sure.
Yeah, tool watch for a tool guy.
You're a craftsman.
Uh, all right. Next up is so this kind of goes along. I caught wind of this one. This has 2022 written all over it. This is the Alpina Star Timer. However, this is the blackout edition.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this at length that black has returned. I mean, it's gone through periods where it's been popular and it's gone
Yeah.
through little peaks and valleys here and there. Black this year has been really in. People have done sort of the blackout editions of a lot of things. The
Yeah.
Zen I bought is blacked out. So I think people are just looking for something different. I mean, I think since steel made such a big comeback over precious metals, and then we've had titanium, it's sort of just a natural progression of like, what else is there? Oh, well, we could do some black coatings, and if you've listened to our black coatings episode, you know all about that. But yeah, you get a bunch of different looks. You get sort of the stealthy. You can go militaristic or just kind of a toned down, not so loud look, as opposed to something that's so bright and vibrant or shiny. You get that. You lose that sheen a little bit, which is nice. But it's a cool watch. Sort of 10 case. Uh, 2 sub registers, center chronoseconds,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I mean it's the usual start timer.
Yeah, I mean it's exactly right. It's a usual start timer, just in now black livery, which is cool. It's very much like a 70s type chronograph, right? You have
Yes.
that barrel case, twin subdial register, like you mentioned. This to me kind of looks like I know it's a little bit of an abstraction, but it almost reminds me of like a vintage Hoyer Black Monza.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's obviously not exactly the same, but it's in that same kind of like rally chronograph look, which I think is very cool. And given what Monzas cost today, going for something like this gives you that same kind of vibe. And honestly, to me, this one's a little bit cleaner. It's just very like linear. It's very symmetrical. It's got a very clean aesthetic. I really like it. I mean, I'm not rushing out to get one myself, but I think
Not at 3 grand.
if you're looking for a black chronograph, I think it's a very cool piece to pick up.
Yeah, I think so too. Pretty standard dimensions, 42 millimeters, 1475 thick. Yeah, it's for a chronograph. That's not horrible. 100 meter though. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's a mono pusher, which is also kind of unique.
Yeah, it's got a Lejeune Perret
It's a
movement.
mono pusher chrono. I like that. That to me is cool. It's just different
Yeah, it gives
enough,
something else. And last up, we have the Unimatic and Revolution collab, the Rake U1 GMT Arctic Fox, which is already sold out, so no need to rush to check it out. But really cool, sort of the typical Unimatic style, but
Yeah,
their GMT configuration, dated 6. But this is white out, which is also a neat look. I know they've
yeah,
kind of done this before where they go kind of white and gray tones. I like it a lot. It is very clean. It's very if you ever seen the white Royal Oak ceramic, it kind of
yeah.
evokes a similar idea where you get like, I don't know, it's sort of like a futuristic look, right? When you get the all white.
Yeah, it's very clinical, very futuristic, kind of like model society almost, it feels like. What's interesting about this is the actual coating itself. And this is something that's not often seen on a lot of mainstream watches. I know a lot of modders have used this material back in the day and certainly in present as well. But it's Cerakote,
Yeah, interesting.
which is a very distinctive material. It's used a lot in high wear components, specifically like in the firearm industry. You find a lot on ARs or pistols, especially if you are somebody that is a gun enthusiast. Cerakote just got a really, really great hard wearing material, and you can do it in a variety of colors. And obviously, in this one, we get that kind of like Arctic white gray.
Yeah, and it gives you a really neat texture. I don't know if you could see it. There's sort of like little like dips and
Imperfections. It's
yeah,
it's like distressed.
right.
It is to me when I look at it, it reminds me of a pair of like 80s like acid wash jeans that are like a little bit distressed on them. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
it's very cool. It's not at all a watch I would have ever like sat at a table and just kind of like picked out of my brain, but I love it. I think it's a very, very cool watch. I know Waco and the team at Revolution, and subsequently the Rake and obviously in collaboration with Unimatic. I, it was an odd watch to release at the time it was released. Kind of like the winter white watch, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, this would have been more of a summer hit, especially with the GMT complication or whatever. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's very distinctive. It's very cool. I love that it's already distressed. It's aged already. Comes in a wide variety of straps. It is a GMT complication. We keep echoing that this is the year of GMT, or at least 2022 was the year of the GMT. We'll see if 2023 is also a continuation of that year of GMT. But it's a fun watch.
Yeah, and it looks like you can get it either on a white ribbed rubber or I don't know if that's a sailcloth, some kind of fabric strap, but it's like a
Yeah,
Arctic camo, which is also kind of
yeah.
neat.
It because I think that was what I saw. It was supposed to be inspired by was like Arctic white camo uniforms,
Well, they nailed
which
that.
totally makes sense to me. It's a very cool looking watch,
Yeah,
and
and
I
it
have a lot of respect for Unimatic. They do some cool stuff.
it brings the sort of the Arctic camo look home with the subtle black tip on both the second hand and the GMT hand, also, which is kind of neat. I really
Exactly.
appreciate that. And I believe I want to say it's like $1,600, which if you're looking for something to scratch that IWC, I can't remember the name of the white one, but that white clean IWC look or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
well, you're not going to go out and fork over that kind of cash. This is kind of a decent alternative for that look.
yeah, yeah. It's that white ceramic one that they do.
Yeah, and at 1,600, like, you know,
And it's a Unimatic, and I think the GMTs, if I'm not mistaken, are using higher grade movements than what they did in the past. Because I'm pretty sure. So I have an original Gen One Unimatic when it
right.
first dropped with from Hodinkee. I think they were the first like retailer of Unimatic back in the day. They had an article about it, and I have the original Gen One Unimatic. And back then they were using, I believe, Miyota movements. I don't think that they're doing that anymore. I could be wrong, but I believe on the GMTs and some of these more collaboration pieces, they're using higher grid movements.
Honestly, I don't know anything about it, but I do know they're an Italian company now.
Yeah, yeah.
Surprised they didn't get like a Unimatico instead of Unimatic.
Well, you have to remember the name, right? It's a we know it as the U1,
Yes.
but it's the Unimatic Modello Uno
Yes.
U1.
And with that, we can transition. Oh, wait, hold on. I do want to get some housekeeping in. I didn't put this out there, but I did allude to this in an earlier episode. How I said I had a little something coming out in a decently big magazine. So if you go to the GQ Britain site, I have a little blurb. Bryn from Dime Piece wrote an article about social media and the impact on the watch industry, and she's got me and a few other people in there. I just gave a couple little quotes, nothing major, but pretty cool. See my name in print. Got to show it to the mom, the family, all pretty neat. So I had some people they kind of they that didn't necessarily know this is like what I do in my spare time, and they're like, wait, what? Like this is like your entire this is like a whole life, but we didn't know about it. I'm like, yeah, could be worse. It could be like an assassin.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, nobody would really know, right?
That's right. But yeah, it was just really cool. It was cool to I had them put I asked if they could put my real name in there one time just so I could have like a claim to fame one day. Show the grandkids. Check it out. This was grandpa. He was a shit poster.
Your grandpa was a shit poster and meme lord in the
That's
years
right, kids.
2021 to 2027.
That's right. So that was my cool little I forgot to mention that. That was the one thing I wanted to remember to say earlier. I didn't, but
That's
but
awesome, man.
now we can move on to our topic. So to sum up 22 and to transition to our 23 look ahead and everything, Schmidt and I wanted to do a little drop of the year type of thing. What I think in my mind when I think of this is sort of like Time does person of the year or man of the year, woman of the year, whatever, where it doesn't necessarily have to be the highest selling or the most popular or the most lauded watch of the year, but it could be the most relevant watch of the year.
Hmm.
Or it could be any of those. They just have to have a reason to justify it. I mean, I think you saw people like I think people like Putin have been on there. People like Greta Thunberg have been on there. Like it doesn't you don't have to be super, some sort of tycoon or inventor or something. You just have to be relevant. So
You're just some person that captures the moment,
right. So
whatever moment that may be, right?
so I'm sure Cardi B will be on there one day or something.
Who knows? Who knows?
No, but that's kind of what I think of it when I think of watch of the year, drop of the year. I try to think of something that really kind of shook the landscape as opposed to something that was necessarily overall um rallied behind or like rejoiced. Like I try to think of something that really just made waves throughout
Hmm.
the industry.
Yeah.
And I know you and I are probably right on the same page. And I'm just going to get this one out there to start because I think it's the most obvious. I'm sure everybody has already shouted in their headphones to their car. The Moonswatch.
Yep.
I think this is if there was a betting favorite, I think that would be this one. The Moonswatch. I know you're gonna have some people right now saying it's a cheap $260 quartz plastic watch. I don't know how you can compare that to what else comes out. Listen, it's not just about the sum of its parts. Okay, first and foremost, the fact that Omega decided that they were gonna like let this fly is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Can we just say that it's amazing?
Well, and it's funny. I saw this on an article recently. It was a really in-depth article. I think I can't remember who it was. I think it was Gear Patrol actually. But it was a really in-depth article, kind of in the history behind how the Moonswatch came to be.
Interesting.
And it was a very long article, but very, very, very good. And basically, the author interviewed Hayek, Nicholas Hayek
Yeah.
Jr., who's the president CEO of Swatch Group, globally. And he kind of alluded to the fact that like Omega, like Reynald Ashraman, who's the president CEO of Omega, like he didn't really want to do this, but Hayek was like, "You don't have a choice.
Oh,
We're doing this." And he even kind of mentioned that like Reynald was a little bit like not indifferent to it, but just very hesitant about the idea of the project. Not that he couldn't see it being successful or not successful, but just like, what would this really mean? This is really uncharted territory, you know? And Nicholas Hayek, being truly the visionary that he is, I mean, obviously he's the son of his father, who basically saved the watch industry as we know it
right.
with the invention of the Swatch watch. Um, he's like, we're doing it, and he's like, full send, we're doing it. We're not going to go with Blancpain. We're not going to make a C Swatch yet.
Hmm.
We're doing a Moon Swatch, and you know, kudos to them because this watch literally changed not only 2022, in my opinion, but the landscape of all future watch collaborations and all future watch drops. I just, it's going to be very hard to get that out of people's mindsets.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to in that it's more than just the sum of its bioceramic pieces, in that Omega, by hook or by crook, made this thing
Yep.
and put it out there. And whether they judged or misjudged the popularity, or that was by design or not, it was obviously a hit. We saw
Yeah.
that firsthand. But also the fact that they would take arguably their most iconic model and allow a likeness. Obviously, it's not a one
Yeah.
for one. It's got very different materials and all that, and it's got a co-branding, but a likeness to be reproduced. And I think everybody always says the same thing about legacy and brand. That, listen, they thought of this. They thought that was exactly why he didn't want to do it in the first place. He probably said, "Listen, the Speedmaster legacy is what it is.
Yeah. We can't tarnish
It's
it. We can't
coveted,
taint it.
right?
Yeah.
It is sacred as far as watch collectors go. I don't know if we can get away with this." And I'm sure there was a bunch of tussle back and forth about differences and things like that. And I'm sure the design probably got rehashed a couple times over that, but they got that done and they put this thing out, and it it didn't just shake the landscape. It was an earthquake. It
It it eviscerated anything. And the thing was, despite all the pitfalls and the issues with how the watch was officially announced or not announced on social media or whatever, I don't know if that was by design or what, but regardless, it was literally the perfect storm. The teaser photos, the drops, on this date, you're going to change your swatch for Omega, or you're going to change. I don't know if you remember or you caught that. Um, but apparently this was a nod, and this was also echoed in that article. This was a nod back to one of the original Swatch campaigns when it launched back in 1984. That it was basically like, on this date, you're going to change your Rolex for Swatch. And that was literally the advertising campaign. It's time to rethink your Rolex, or it's time to rethink your Swatch, or something like that. And they reused that same type of
Interesting.
marketing when they announced the new Swatch, kind of teasing up to the official release date. So it's very interesting. It was a watch really that had a lot of Easter eggs. A lot of people that were maybe older, aspects of the watch collecting community, or people that were around at the time the original swatches were launched, would maybe remember this. But the thing I loved about the Moon Swatch is it spoke to all generations, right? Seasoned collectors with Pateks in, all different kinds of crazy hierology pieces were trying to get their hands on a
Yep.
Moon Swatch, all the way down to the guy who's just kind of like gonna be a flip bro on StockX. They're all trying to get this piece, and even still today, people are trying to get this watch. It's available now more than it ever has been,
Yes.
but people are still trying to get it. And I can't think of a watch that, from any price point, has really captured people that way across the entirety of the spectrum of collectors. And say what you want, be a hater, be a lover. It's a watch that has forever honestly changed the landscape of watch collecting, period.
And I think more than anything, it brought fun to a pretty sterile, pretty
It needed it so
gray
bad.
hobby.
It needed it so
Right?
bad.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Look at the color range you got. And if you didn't want color, you could have it all black. You could have almost Speedmaster
Yeah.
colorway.
Yeah. The moon version, the Mercury version.
But the most popular ones were absurd colors.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was the other part, was you could have the aesthetic of a moon watch with fun colors that normally the moon watches that have sort of fun colorations go for big money.
Yeah. And the cheekiness behind everything too, right? Because that's that color, that fun, that whimsical design, that not take yourself so seriously mentality, that is all Swatch, right? That is literally the iconicism and the legacy of the branding that Swatch has created, right? So many people forget about what Swatch actually means, right? It's Swatch, right? So S and then watch. It originally said it for not only Swiss watch, because that's what it is. It is a Swiss made watch, but it also stood for second watch, because the idea was these were so inexpensive, they were so fun that you would buy multiples of them as accessories to yourself. So you would not only wear one Swatch, you would wear four Swatches, right? And you would buy plastic bumpers and you would buy all these cool things to switch in and out and collaborate and change your watches. You would share them with your friends. It was a way to be fun and energetic and get people, especially from a younger demographic in the 80s, into watches. A demographic that had never touched the stuff because they considered it their dads and parents'
Yeah,
thing to do.
jewelry.
It was, but they considered it to be old class.
Yes.
Like we're every decade is the rebellious decade, right? In comparison to the previous decade. So they're always trying to rebel against what came before them. And so the 80s was another era of rebellion in a different way
Sure.
than it was in the 70s and it was in the 60s, right? So this new demographic is like, oh, I don't want to wear a traditional wristwatch like my dad who's on Wall Street wearing his two-tone sellout Rolex. I'm going to get a Swatch because that's a watch that truly defines who I am as a young person. Right. And I think a lot of that was packaged up into the Moon Swatch so well. And like you said, you married that with a likeness of one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic chronograph in the world. And you marketed it and sold it for $260 US, and the internet exploded.
Not to
Broke.
mention, it was the week or weekend before Watches and Wonders, and it carpet bombed
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
I mean,
something. I've never
yeah, I
seen
mean,
anything like it.
RJ from Fratello covered this in depth. He's like, everywhere I went, I was wearing the Moon Swatch. Everyone wanted to see it. And he said you knew everyone because you could hear the Velcro straps being unbuckled by everyone in every presentation meeting. From all these people at Watches and Wonders, they were all taking out their Moon Swatches and showing everybody because it was such like a hype icon. And like I said, to the cheekiness of all of this, that was done certainly with intention, 100%. Swatch Group knew exactly what they were doing, launching that right before Watches and Wonders because it literally deflated. I mean, I couldn't even tell you. We did a whole episode on this, right? It was Watches and Blunders.
Yep.
We did a whole episode on this. To this day, outside of what Rolex released, I literally could not tell you anything else we covered. I can't remember it because the Moon Swatch just evaporated. It was literally Rolex and Moon Swatch, and like that's it. And only Rolex because of what we'll talk about in a minute. But all of this was done with intention. It was cheekiness. That's also how we got Mission to Uranus.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Like
the gift that keeps on giving.
I mean, it's on the freaking case back. Somebody in prototyping was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna do it." it was a conversation. It had to be because it's like, all right, mission to the moon, mission to Saturn, mission to Pluto. Okay, these all make sense. It's like mission to Uranus. Like somebody sat there and was like, "Should we do it? Full send, let's do it." And they just did it.
Can I just say I nearly pissed myself making the meme of Anakin and Padma. You can go back and look at it. It's March of last year. So it's Anakin and he's got like sort of the serious face on. And he's like, I want a mission to Uranus. And the next one is her smiling and she's like, the Moon's Watch,
Oh,
right? And he's just got the perverted
yeah,
look on his face.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Moon's Watch, right?
The Moon's Watch, right? Yeah. Moon's
I,
Watch, right.
when I laugh out loud making something, I'm like, this is gonna be so good. That's how I do that. Was good.
But again, it's just like how do you get Omega, and then how do you get Swatch, and then how do you put that on the back of this thing and sell it in the Tiffany blue kind of colorway that you
Yeah,
already know?
the color that
It's
everybody
like
was
the
looking.
color like that everyone's trying to swoon after, right? They don't even call it blue; it's Tiffany blue or whatever, light blue, whatever, right? And that's the mission to Uranus.
I feel like that was almost done intentionally to try to steer people, like put a decision on people. Like, listen, if you're gonna go after this one because it's
You're
probably
going
gonna be
to the mission to
popular,
Uranus. Yeah,
you're gonna wear something that says Uranus on it.
absolutely. Like I said, somebody greenlit
I
this
I know there's a
in a
color
dark
match
room and was
between
like,
the
"This is
planet and
gonna be
all,
hilarious."
but geez,
And that I think overall, as a side note, I think 2022 was also the undercurrent of the troll watch year.
okay,
Like
I can
it's
see
just
it.
it's like
I can
things
see it.
like that. Like we're gonna make the mission to Uranus. We're gonna make a left-handed drive GMT that's ridiculous to set. We're gonna make a 50 millimeter titan. Like it's just the year of troll. Like we're just gonna make the most ridiculous things, and people are gonna buy it anyway. And we're gonna see how far we can push the limits on these watches.
All right. Since we went there, I guess we'll go there next because, like you said, the takeaways from Watches and Wonders were like, here were the themes, right? Was Moonswatch came out, nobody cares about anything else. Destro Rolex.
Destro Rolex, yeah.
They put crown guards on the Air King.
Which again, until you said it right now, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. Um, they changed the bezel on the Tudor GMT to be root beer. And
Okay,
if
yeah.
I think that's when the Black Bay Pro came out. And that was the other big headline, I think.
Yes, the Black Bay Pro. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Again, I completely forgot about that watch until right now. And a good buddy of mine who listens to this podcast has one. Shout out to you, bud.
so there's that. I guess we'll talk Rolex Destro, whether you call it, I don't know, the Green Lantern or whatever the hell, the Mountain Dew game
Sprite,
fuel. Yeah.
and you know what? That's how you know people universally don't know how they feel about this watch because they cannot come up with a name. There's no consensus here. Like everyone calls the Hulk Submariner the Hulk.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but I've heard Green Lantern, I've heard Sprite, I've heard Starbucks. I mean, like, people can't come up with what they want. So to me, that's indication that people are a little bit lukewarm to this, and they're only buying because they know it's going to be collectible.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the consensus. I think a lot of people thought it was kind of ugly, kind of silly.
It's stupid. It's completely
I'm
stupid.
gonna be honest. I was pretty warm on the Matrix as a name because every time you look at the Matrix, it's all the black and green writing. But
Okay, see, that actually sounds cool.
yeah, I thought so. I thought that'd be a pretty cool name. But you know,
But people are always trying to do stupid superhero names, and I'm tired of it.
yeah, we don't
Dude,
need a
this is the
superhero name for everything.
the Batman. This is I'm like, come on, guys, seriously. The Hulk. It's like
And then how did we get? Who decided Pepsi was Pepsi when it could have been Superman, Spider Man, Captain America?
exactly. Oh, you know who? Old school collectors just didn't grow up with Marvel. That's who. Because that was termed back in the 80s and 90s. Like, yeah, this is a Pepsi, this is a Coke. You know?
Yeah. So, anyways, it's a GMT. A lot of people call it the upside down GMT.
Yikes.
Either way, you said it on the other side. It's black and green, something they've never really done before. But again, more than just the sum of its parts. Obviously, we think it's going to be collectible. It's going to be hard to get because it's Rolex. It's something they've never done before. But the fact that they went that direction was the more interesting thing than anything. The fact that they gave you a color that they've never really done in GMT form. They gave you a Destro, which they don't really do. And they put it on one of their most popular and coveted models. I mean, it's interesting. It's not that I love that watch, but it's certainly thought provoking, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to get the conversation started for sure. And it's one of those watches that people will notice from across the room. 100%. There's no way to wear that watch and people don't notice it. So, the kind of person who's going to buy this type of timepiece is looking for that type of appreciation too. It's going to be a watch that people recognize.
And that's sort of when people always ask me why I think the Oyster Quartz is cool. And I say it's because it's different. It's not something you're ever going to get again. And I think that's what this is going to be. You're not going to get this ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to look at it for sure.
People are like,
it's a good way to look at it.
It's a stupid quartz watch. I'm like, yeah, but like you can get a Rolex with an integrated bracelet. I mean, okay, a quartz Rolex. Mm-hmm. And I think somebody told me this. I don't know if it's 100% true. Somebody told me that was the first model they offered sapphire on. Or among the first lines they offered sapphire crystal.
On the Oyster Quartz?
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually.
I'm not sure either, but somebody passed me along that info, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I wondered, it had got me thinking if at that time, because quartz was all the rage, if Rolex had wondered if this was the future of watchmaking. So okay,
a future
sapphire
material
crystal
on it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a thought provoking model.
It's
I like it
plausible.
For
it's
that reason.
Plausible. Yeah.
It's something different. It's got sort of a classic Rolex look, but it's a tweak, and that's sort of what this is.
A cool roll, and you know what? Still to these days, those watches are so undervalued. Like still to this day, they're undervalued.
And I don't know if that whole thing about them not servicing them anymore or whatever is true, but I can't imagine it's a hard watch to service.
I mean, I'll tell you this: I've seen the inside of a because it's basically based off the Beta 21 caliber that was used by a lot of different brands.
Yeah,
I've seen the inside of one. It's a pretty crazy quartz movement. Like you can actually see like if I remember correctly, it actually has like like an escapement type system.
interesting.
It's very weird. Let's see if I can look up the movement.
Yeah, I didn't exactly just picture the old you pull it off and there's just a battery hatch and that's it. But
No, it's much more complicated than that. It's there's actually parts going on inside of it that you can see things moving. It's maybe not like a yeah, okay, I was right. All right. If you look at it, there's actually like a version of a pallet fork type situation on the
interesting.
inside. It's not exactly the same, but it kind of operates in that same concept, if you will.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But so that's why I like that watch. And I think that's why some people will like this watch is because they're just gonna say this is just so out there for them that maybe you're a fan of the brand, but their normal stuff kind of bores you a little bit. So this is you. But yeah, again, I don't know if you're ever gonna get your hands on one or what the cost might be, but that's another story.
Yeah, man. So yeah. So what's next?
Well, I figure as long as we're on GMTs, I think we stick with GMT.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite easy to acquire watch of the year, and I think a lot of people have found this very entertaining, is the Seiko GMT, the SSK
Oh,
models.
yes. Yes, 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 yes.
This was like such a breath of fresh air because I think the GMT complication always comes in a little high. I know you can get them in some micro brands and there are some cheap watches. I mean, look, you can get a Casio that has every single time zone on earth in it, and who cares? But as far as the GMT aesthetic, it usually comes in a little higher. These starting off, I think, around 500, which means you can probably get them in the 300 range, and you pick them up used and things like that. I don't know how you're going to beat it. I mean, for me, it alleviated all the problems I had with the 5KX diver, quote
Yeah.
unquote, because I don't really mind the no screw
And it
down crown or the 100-meter water resistance
and it makes
because
sense because it's not
yes,
trying to be a diver.
right, it's not
It's
trying
trying
to
to
be a
be a
diver.
GMT.
And I think the little bit of added busyness to the bezel and things like that, I think it remedied so much of that. And they gave it to you on the Jubilee just as they used to do with the SKX. So I think this is going to, in maybe the grand scheme of things, replace the SKX in the hearts of a lot of people. Whereas
I
the
could see that.
5KX diver did not satiate them.
I could see that. But and you have to think about why, right? The SKX gave us something. It
Yeah.
gave us an ISO certified diver, 200 meters of water resistance, screw down crown, tough as nails, bullet movement. You had a few different variations, 009, 007, all the different kind of versions that you could get.
Yep.
And you had affordability. Like it was an entry watch. And I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense in the sense that this is going to replace that concept. It's not a diver anymore, but it's a cool complication in a watch that's readily available, very relatively affordable, in a few different color configurations. And obviously, we'll probably get more, I'm sure.
I would think.
And it's only going to make things better for the watch industry because now this will be a movement that Seiko can farm out to micro brands and stuff. And we're going to start seeing more GMTs trickle out and pop out. And I mean, it's just going to make sense. And I think it starts with exactly what you said. This will be, in many ways, the foundational Seiko. I don't think we'll get another Seiko SKX version per se.
Right.
Maybe we will, but I don't think so.
No,
I think that they're going to reserve it for this.
I think so too. And again, you get sort of the Seiko heritage with the orange down, things like that. But listen, if you get the black, not that they're comparable in any way, but you certainly get some GMT Master vibes there.
Yeah.
Right.
And you
So
and you have one. You have
I do.
that.
I have the all black with sort of the silver.
I love that
Yeah.
because it's like it looks like it's all black, but it's like in the right light, it's like black and gray.
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly
so
what it is.
cool.
Head on, it looks very all black. And then the bottom half comes off silvery. I don't know how they treated that. I don't know if it's a coating or if it's just the way they went about housing the bezel itself, but it's really nicely done and it was really cool. And I yeah, I really enjoy that watch. And people have asked me about it, how what do you think of it? How good is it? And I'm like, it is good. It's real good. I wear it all the time. And it's gonna fill listen, if you like the SKX, it's gonna fall right in there. It wears pretty much the same, but it's not the same watch, obviously. So you
Yeah,
get a little
and
bit of different
it's
functionality. And listen, you were probably putting a 12-hour bezel on your SKX anyway, because that's what was cool. So
just about to say that
there you go.
James Stacy and the 12-hour bezel, like everyone remembers that look, and a lot of people did it because he did it. So it's this is a cool look.
And not that it's for everybody, but I mean, you get a Cyclops. It's an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, and I'm sure for all the guys that don't like the Cyclops that are indifferent to it, I'm sure Seiko's going to come out with a limited edition or specialty edition of this watch this year. Maybe that doesn't have it, or maybe that has a day date version. Who knows? There's
Yeah,
so many possibilities with this movie because the platform is there.
right.
They can do it now.
So I think that one, for a lot of people, it was a big drop. Again, it's a cheap watch. Is it anything special on paper? No, but what it's symbolic of and what it means to collectors. I mean, being able to pick something like that up for $300-400,
It's
it's
nothing.
big. It's bigger than people think.
It's nothing, and it's a great daily companion. This to me, in many ways, and I know, we're looking kind of for the watch of the year, in essence, but this in many ways is the perfect travel watch of the year. It's low key, it's inexpensive. If you go to a tropical place and somebody holds you hostage and wants your watch, well, hey, what's your $300 Seiko really gonna mean at the end of the day? It's a perfect low key
Right. I
timepiece,
mean,
and
for better or for worse, that seems to be a topic that's on a lot of people's tongues.
I mean, shout out London, right? Like,
Yeah. So I mean, hey, there is a little bit of a good feeling that comes along with I'm good. Like
yeah,
I hand it over, no big deal. Take it if you want it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, moving on. I think we'll go. I guess we might as well go back to Rolex before we head out. The Rolex Challenge, the Omega Challenge watches. I think those were really big. The Rolex one, I think even more so because Omega has given us some bigger watches before. Not that big, maybe, and obviously not as specked out, but you've seen the bigger Planet Oceans and things like that. They make some beefy watches. They make some
Yeah,
really heavy
they
duty
do.
stuff. Rolex does not do this. Rolex does not make 50 millimeter hubcaps.
I mean, they do now.
They do now, right? Like I
They,
think if you went into 2022 telling someone this is going to be the year Rolex drops a 50 millimeter,
yeah, this was not on the 2022
yeah,
bingo card.
they would tell you you're on drugs.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
Again,
Whew.
I don't really enjoy this watch, but
I don't at all. I think
it's certainly sent tremors through the atmosphere of the watch world, watch sphere, whatever you want to call
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it is certainly a very provoking Rolex in the sense that it's really the antithesis of Rolex, right? Rolex doesn't change their styles. They don't do this because they're very conservative. They move at snail speed. All this stuff. They've been slowly, incrementally increasing their sizes over the time, right? We went from 40 to 41. Things have been getting kind of bigger. Some models have been going smaller, but then all of a sudden, bam, 50 millimeters. And it's quite literally a watch that in every single photo I have ever seen of it depicted, not a single person could wear it.
it. No,
The lug to lug is bananas.
it's obnoxious.
It hangs off everybody's wrist, and everyone has to edit the photo or take it at just the right angle so it does not look like that's the case. It's monstrous. It's too thick. This is literally a paperweight collector item. And good luck to you guys spending $26,000 on it. I hope you're happy with your paperweight that you're going to sit in there. But hey, it's the first ever full fledged Rolex in titanium. Cool. It's 11,000 meters water resistant. Cool. For me, you guys know I'm an Omega fanboy. I would take an Ultra Deep over this every single day. And this begs the question, too, was this really Rolex trying to take back some ground that Omega picked up over the last few years with the Ultra Deep expeditions, with the deep sea diving stuff, and the watches that they launched earlier before Rolex? It's kind of an interesting conversation. I know we've touched on it before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but it's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, food for thought.
Omega did it first. Now Rolex is coming back.
And sort of with that, their overall competition and everything. I know people always say that Rolex is now using Tudor to kind of get back at Omega and compete with them. We got a Pelagos in 39.
Yeah.
And while this is a cool watch and it's something that I asked for and something that I kind of not predicted, but I always said this was overdue. I think the biggest takeaway is that they heard it and they listened to people.
Yeah.
When people said the Pelagos is just a little big, it's a really cool watch. What it stands for, what it harkens back to is really, really neat. The design is great. It's just not that agreeable for everybody's wrist. Not only did you get an FXD version, but then you also got this one, which, for some people was a little nerfed, a little dumbed down, but
It was nerf for me. You and I talked about this
yeah,
before.
yeah. But for, I think, average Joe, it's a much more wearable watch, and it
Mhm.
lost a bunch of specs that maybe they don't care so much about. I mean,
Yeah,
the
I
watch
mean,
heads are gonna be a little upset about the original Pelagos bracelet,
yourself included.
myself included. But for a lot of people, this was, oh my god, thank heaven I could finally wear this watch if I wanted.
Yeah. I mean, look, as we talked about before on the pod, this was a perfect spec watch.
Yes,
This is the WIS Wet Dream spec watch. Titanium, 39 millimeter, matte finish, utilitarian, in-house movement, Tudor, attractive price point given what it is. It's a wet dream. And like you said, it's scary that Tudor actually listened to the fan base and made something like this. Now, for me, you're missing the bracelet clasp system. You're missing the 500-meter diving water resistance. You're missing the helium escape valve. You're missing all the crazy, luminous plots that made the original Tudor Pelagos very cool. You're missing the color blue. Those things for me made it attractive, but that's not for everybody.
right.
I'm not the typical collector, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Tudor's going to drop here very shortly, because
You
this
would
is,
think that they're gonna expand on that.
I don't know. Maybe we'll finally get a Tudor Pelagos GMT. Who knows? They've been asking
Oh,
for like 10 years.
yeah,
So
that'll be next on the list. And then I had a couple sort of outside shots that probably wouldn't make the list, but a couple that I thought of sort of off the top of my head that stuck with me were the Moonshine Speedies, both the
oh yeah.
the different dials, but the Moonshine Gold, which I thought were really, really nice, and all the pictures I saw were just breathtaking.
A1.
Like I
A1.
love their different hued golds on all their Speedmasters, as I've talked about at length, but so good. And then the U50 Pro, after I found out that you could actually get it swapped so that the crown was at 4, I was very interested. I really didn't like it up on the top left, but if I can get it at 4, I'm very interested. But they're long gone. But it's a cool
Yeah.
watch, red text,
Yeah.
the whole nine, kind of blacked out look. But yeah, very, very cool. Again, not that I maybe consider that watch of the year, but these are watches that stuck with me. They still made it into my head despite the moon swatch hoopla and everything.
Despite the
They
Moose
must be doing
watch
something right.
just eviscerating any watch drop for all of
Right.
2022.
So
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. We had a lot of great stuff released this year, and some, like I said, was a lot of troll stuff. I mean, I can think of like an honorable mention, like the Chrono Chime from Omega.
yeah.
Like completely unnecessary, but why not?
Yeah, out of the blue.
Because we can. Just on a random day in November, boom, Chrono Chime. Like just very impressive complication, very cool watch, just cool. But even still, as much as I love that watch personally, and if I had, $500,000 or whatever it costs to get the Chrono Chime, I still Moonswatch for me all year. This like it's the year of the Moonswatch for sure.
And so putting sort of the bow on 2022, we're going to go on to a little bit of, I don't want to call them predictions, but sort of what we are looking forward to, or maybe some hopes for next year.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have a few. I have a few that I think are very likely, and then I have a few that are sort of just off the rails. That because who the hell knows what's going to go on? Who thought we were getting a plastic Speedmaster? Yeah,
Not me. Not me.
so I think, and this is going to go for both. I think Seiko and Tudor are both going to wind up mining their back catalog. Tudor more the Rolex back catalog, but They're both doing it
Yeah.
very well right now. I think you're maybe going to get a Polar Black Bay Pro,
You think so?
possibly. I mean, I'm just thinking how they're going to shake that up. I mean, I don't want a Black Bay Pro steel and gold,
Yeah, it's I mean that is true. That is true. I definitely don't want one of those either.
right? I could see them putting another GMT out, whether it be a green to match the brother or maybe a Coke because everybody asked for Coke and nobody's getting a Coke. So maybe you
Yeah.
get a Coke Tudor, which I could see. I think everybody's waiting for on the Seiko side the Pogue and the chronographs of that era to come back.
I feel like that's coming.
Now that we're seeing the other speed timers and things like that,
Yeah.
again, it might not be a one for one. It might be sort of some sort of
Well, I mean that's what
a
they've been doing
quartz. Yeah,
recently. Nothing's been an exact one for one for Seiko, but
no,
it's a big riff. It's the same type of style or the same type of vein of what it represents that is making it cool.
yeah. So I mean, this year alone, you got the speed timers, you got the skinny Willards, you got the Sonar reedition with sort of that translucent dial. So I think they're pulling from a lot of those, and there's
Yeah.
there's a ton of them. I mean, they could do Rally Diver, they could do so many things that people love, and they pay big money for right now as far as
Yeah.
Seikos go. So I think they'll definitely keep at that. Um, Sort of with the whole we've talked about Moonswatch, talked about Seiko GMT. I hope that affordable stays in, like in the regard of inexpensive watches, nothing over the top, no frills, but
Yeah.
getting cool products that you don't have to spend an arm and a leg for. Because even some of the newer Seikos and things like that, they're 800, 900. They're not
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah.
They make a dent, whereas you're picking up a Moonswatch for 260. Like, as far as watches go,
You're like 2.5 moon swatches
that's what
to
I'm saying.
that one
As far as
Seiko.
watches go, that's a song and a dance. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I hope affordable stays in. Like, it would be cool if more brands would put out. I don't want to say a cheap offering every year, but something with the entry level people in mind, or the people who
Yeah.
want to have a very diverse collection and don't want to collect the heavy hitter. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm finding myself in that same vein. I mean, I want to get a new Omega this year. And, I never thought I would admit this, but I'm looking at that new DeVille Prestige collection. And I think a lot of the new models that they're not officially all out in stores yet, but they're on the website. You're getting a DeVille Omega master chronometer for like $4,400 or just under $5,000, something like that. That's insane. So it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because I've actually been like, yeah, well, like I just want to scratch this itch, but I don't want to spend $8,000 to do
Yeah.
it. You know?
Yeah. And aside from that, just some color wise, I think the soft colors are here to stay. I think pink, purple, light blue, light green, all of that. I think the
Yeah,
softer palette,
pastels.
I think that's here to stay. Pastel, yeah, pastels, sort of the muted, maize coloring and things like that. I think we're gonna see more of that. I think it's very pleasing to the eye, and it's not such a harsh look on a lot of watches. I think people like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
sort of just the versatility of it. And then here's one complete Hail Mary. Probably not gonna happen, but I I realized the other day I have a very strong affinity for champagne dials, and I wish more people would do them. and
The champagne dial.
yeah, I mean, I know a lot of times it's on a two-tone watch or precious metal watch or whatever, but yeah, bring back the champagne dial. I like the champagne dial.
It's a cool look.
It's
It
not quite
really is.
gold. It's not quite
It's an
silver.
old worldly look, that like golden opaline color, that champagne color. It's a very cool aesthetic, I
Right.
think.
I don't think you have to do two tone with it, but I like it on two tone. But I just like it overall. I think it's just a very classy look. Like I
Yeah.
don't like. I know champagne colored cars are usually old people cars, so I get it. I get the aversion. But a champagne dial and a watch, I think looks really really good, and I would like to see more of them.
Hey, if you think about it, several years ago, back when he was a little bit more relevant, like Macklemore, I could see him driving like a champagne, Cadillac or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right? Like that's kind of the vibe, right? It's very like 70s, 80s color too, especially like in the more dress watch
yeah.
vein, I think.
Absolutely.
I love it. I'm here for it.
All right, what do you got, my friend?
So I know this is kind of a cop out because we've talked about this a lot at length, but I would really like to see maybe a couple more sprinkles of moon swatch flavors. And I didn't think I was gonna, it, say that,
Well,
but
Fratello got the old,
Fratello got
yeah,
me,
got the
man.
wheels turning.
They got the wheels
I don't know
turning
if
for
anybody
sure.
saw that. They put out an article of what was it, moon swatches they wanted to see or that they thought were coming, or
It was basically like they took their two Speedy Tuesday editions, and remixed them into a Moonswatch.
okay.
And I was like, it's a novel idea, but it just seems too perfect. Very well done photoshopping skills, very interesting concepts. It's just kind of like, is this too on the nose? Are we testing the market here? Is Fratello working with Omega to determine if this is a viable thing to do? And if so, what is that going to do for the internet? Now, it may not be the watch that everyone wants collectively around the globe, but if they did a Speedy Tuesday Moonswatch Ultraman,
Oof.
you don't think people are going to be trying to get that thing?
Absolutely.
I would be down. I would be down. Either the Speedy Tuesdays, I think, would be very cool. And I'm not saying that we need to do this where there's a Moonswatch every single month or a flavor of whatever is coming. Like, no, I think you do a couple sprinkles surprise releases of this maybe throughout the year or next few years, and you just let it roll. Keep a few different flavors coming in, coming out, and I think that that's what's going to keep the Moonswatch vibe kind of very cool and long lasting. If that's what Omega and the Swatch Group really want to do with this partnership. I still think it's cool. I still think it's fun. And guys, it's $260. Like, it's not an Omega, it's a Swatch. But I would love to see an Ultraman Moon Swatch. That's for sure.
Yeah, and just thinking off the top of my head, like you could have something nod to Tintin, right?
Yeah,
You could do so. I was talking about the moonshine speedmasters. You don't do moonshine material, but you could get the color, and I'm sure you can make plastic that looks like sort of
yeah.
like
I
the
mean, and
moonshine
and I
hue.
think that that's kind of the interesting thing with the bioceramic is I think you can literally make any color.
Yeah,
Like, you could do probably a gold coloration of a bioceramic color. I mean, you're kind of now you did the yellow for the sun, but I can't imagine a few different types of pigment off to make it more of like a metallic color is not possible.
I mean,
I'm
even if it
I'm
was
sure it
matte,
is.
even if it was just like a matte, like
Champagne.
yeah, I would still go for it. Obviously, I think champagne's on the mind. New Year's, you know.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny because the OG moon swatches were very much riffing very popular Speedmaster models, right? You had the Mars, which is very much like the Alaska project. You had Jupiter, which kind of plays tribute to the Ultraman. You had the Pluto, which is kind of reminiscent of the Apollo 50th anniversary with
And
the
good on them.
burgundy bezel.
Good on them for going with Pluto. You know, everybody leaving Pluto out.
I know, man. I grew up in the generation where Pluto was a planet, so I'm definitely
Team Pluto.
pro Pluto,
Yeah.
pro Pluto.
Now I'm gonna lay one out here to you, and I think they need to make this, and I think they need to send me one because they're gonna make $1 billion off it. I need a Japan Racing Moonswatch
Oh my god.
with the purple. I need
Oh
that. I need that in my life, and
yes.
I need
Oh
it
my
now.
god, that would break the internet.
Oh my god.
Oh man. See, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of ingenuity that comes forth, and something like a Moonswatch could really bring that to fruition,
Because
right?
at the end of the day, what is it? Right? You're not stepping on toes. You're not going all out for crazy materials.
Yeah.
You just slap it together and shovel the money.
Yeah. Oof. RJ, if you ever listen to this podcast, you should definitely talk to Reynald and do like a curated Speedy Tuesday box set of Ultraman, Speedy Tuesday 1, Japanese Racing, Tintin, something that would be fun.
Put
I think
something
that that would be
peanuts on. Don't do
amazing.
Snoopy because that would be way too on the nose. Do something
Yeah.
peanuts e.
Yeah, but I think Swatch has a partnership with Snoopy. They've done like Swatch watches
Yeah, I
with
just don't
with
know if
Snoopy
if
before.
that would really piss off the
That
Snoopy
would piss
owners.
off a lot of people
That's
for
what I'm saying.
sure.
So
That
maybe
would
you
piss
do
off a
like
lot of
a
people.
Woodstock or something.
No, I wonder if that one's too close. I think that might be too close. But I mean, you could do all kinds of stuff, like You could do Olympic watches. You could there's a lot of cool different types of things that you could do with the Moonswatch because you can do a lot of different types of things with Speedmaster as a
Yeah.
collection. You know, so the, man, a black and yellow one would be sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a murdered out Moonswatch. Oh man, man, there's
Wheels
so
are
much.
turning now.
There's literally infinite possibilities for sure. So Omega, anybody that's listening, anybody that cares,
Just
I
do it.
think, yeah, whatever you're thinking, just do it.
Just do
As
it.
long as it's not a Snoopy's involved, that's for sure. But yeah, I think, and this isn't my kind of premonition, but I don't think it's too far off. Like I don't think it's an impossibility. Now, my big thing is caution. I don't want this to be like every month we're pumping out a new version of the Moonswatch. I think it's like it sprinkled in maybe once or twice a year. We'll do a new version that kind of drops in collaboration with what else is already pre-existing. Because even the ones that are pre-existing now are pretty cool.
Like a
But I
special
think if they
breast
discontinue
cancer
those,
awareness,
like
breast cancer awareness charity Moonswash.
there you go. A little bit brighter, vibrant pink. Nice little donation. Moonswatch would be amazing.
Yeah, think Zenith El Primero pink dial, but moon swatchy and you know better donation numbers.
There you go. I like it.
All right, you got any other ones? Looking what you're thinking about for this year?
I'm still gonna hold out for my diver GMT. I know Zodiac gave me a little touch of that towards the end of last 2022.
Yeah,
So I'm excited to see if that model line kind of comes to a bigger, more mainstream version. Or just from any brand. Like that's a complication I just want. I want a true diver's watch with a GMT complication. I don't want a rotating 24-hour bezel. I want an internal 24-hour scale with a diver's bezel. And that's just something that I don't know. I've never had a GMT in my collection personally. I've always wanted one because I think they're cool. I got to borrow my buddy's Longines UTC. I'm sorry, Zulu time.
Zulu time. Yeah,
Uh, he was like, "Hey man, just make sure it's all running good, everything like that." So I borrowed it for about a week, and man, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Very cool watch. So if you're on the fence about the Zulu time, go get one. It's very cool. But I've been wanting a GMT for a while, and I think if that was going to be the perfect storm, the divers watch with GMT, that's the way to go.
all right. And I think last up we were kind of just I think everybody does these like resolution episodes or whatever, but I was just think there's always like a couple things that are in my mind, and one of them is always the same thing is just to buy less watches, and it's the hardest one to follow because like I said, people drop a Moonswatch, a Seiko GMT, and you're like, well,
Yeah,
that's a buy, right?
yeah,
That's a buy.
that's a
So
no
like what?
brainer.
Yeah, it gets so hard on that, and ideally, I want to buy less things just because I want to have less clutter and less
Yeah,
options and things like that.
yeah.
But
You're
at
trying to
this,
scale back, become more minimalist, and it's just not a
I
thing.
say that, and then, but I also don't want to be the guy who trades in all his watches for like two heavy hitters, and then I'm like, all right, well, I got A and I got B.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like there's not really a happy medium for me to hit, but I'm going to try to hit it anyway.
Yeah, I saw a video recently of a guy on YouTube. He's like, "Yeah, I only have 5 watches in my collection at all times." He goes, "My rule of thumb is like if one comes
Yeah,
in, one's
one
got to
in,
go
one
out."
out. I've heard them
I'm
all.
like,
Trust me, I'm just not that satisfied with the
I'd
mantra.
rather I'd rather have the big boxes back there.
Yeah, and sort of to spring off of that is to figure out what the hell I am doing with my collection. I never know. I just look at it sometimes. I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? I have no theme. I have no
You know
nothing.
what?
It just sort of is.
I just like my collection to just be completely just when somebody looks at it, they look like my collection is somehow indicative of like 12 a.m. drunk eBay purchases. Like that's what
Nice.
for me watch collecting should be. Just random, just ridiculousness. That's what I want.
And then yeah, aside from that, I mean, personal goals. I would like to continue to expand the brand. I think I've picked up more files this year than I ever have. I would keep that up and just keep at it, and see what other new and interesting heights I could take it to. I would also like to beat $20,000 in donations this year for Real Men Wear Pink. see if I get to that. That's gonna be a tough one. I didn't ever expect to get near there this year, but here I am, and so we'll see.
So yeah, it's a steep hill to climb, but hopefully we got some things working in the pipeline that can certainly get us to that next level, even if it's 20,001. That will be so.
Yeah, no doubt. That's all I want to do. I just want to beat last year. That's all.
Yep.
So.
I think for me, I want to get more engagement with our community. I think is kind of one of the big things that I want to do. Certainly push that with social media presence and just making sure that we're getting more content that's tailor-made for you guys. And as always, guys, if you're listening to this, drop us a DM. A lot of you guys still do it. Drop us a DM, get in our messages and propose an idea for a topic on an episode. Sometimes we need the extra help to come up with the feedback and produce something for you guys. So, we never want to be a podcast that becomes irrelevant to what your needs are, what you want. So, we want to keep making content for y'all. You are our listeners, you're our supporters. So that's certainly very important to us.
Yeah, and I know sometimes we don't always get right back to you. You got to understand, both of us have jobs, both of us have kids. I have another account.
And sometimes bro checks it, and I don't know.
Oh yeah, that happens too. We share the Rich Cheese Radio account. So every once in a while, I'll stop in on something and I'll be like, oh yeah, I gotta get, and then I'll be distracted. I'll get distracted. I'll close it. Schmidt will never see it or comes back to it later and is like, oh crap, I need to respond to this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot to even open that. Like it gets it's a little hectic. It's a little more involved than you would think.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if there's a better way to organize that. Like if it's something I think you should see, I'll try to use the unread function, but I don't know how that works across platforms and everything. So, it gets a little confusing at times, but we do try to keep up as best we can. Sometimes we cannot always, but we do appreciate you reaching out, chiming in. It's all been really great and a lot of fun so far. So we're hopefully going to bring that to you in 2023 on a better level and, have a great time overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, here's the 2023. Keep kicking it with us, guys. And we'll
catch you next week.
Content, and we'll catch you next week.
That's it. Rich Cheese Radio out.
Take care.